I thought today, as a underlying concept or idea throughout the exercise, we'll kind of look at resolution and dissolution to some degree, kind of things that start from a loose place, get a little bit more defined, and then dissipate out into the page. So in that, we'll use the warm-up to kind of define our phases, perhaps there, the looseness of a starting place, and maybe that's a simple, like, being with about, or with no real strong definition or shape. So a squiggle or peanuts or a loose shape or something like that. And then you can imagine some parts of it can get more precise, whether that's through a careful curve, mimicking the shape, or perhaps an introduction of some combination of more controlled straighter lines or curved lines, arcs and tangents, things that go from the wiggliness of a beginning of an idea to a little more precision in its construction. But it can still have some of the curviness to it. That's all up to you in the exploration of the drawing. And then starting to take that and give it more and more, perhaps, refinement. It becomes its own bits and shapes along the way, taking little parts out and exploring them as the whole defines its pieces a little more. And then those elements can begin to dissolve, to become lighter, to become echoes or suggestions, and see where that goes. But it'll kind of work from a starting place outward, each layer building a new portion of that resolution or dissolution into the paper. I'm going to start with the page, taking it in, just deciding between you and your position, maybe a little movement, a little adjusting of the hands, and just feeling out where you are with the paper, where it might be a nice place to start. Maybe it's more comfortable with your primary hand in a certain position, reaching across the body can cause us to twist a little bit, being more neutral, or just going right into the middle of noticing it, using the freedom of movement, the lack of instrument to get familiar with that space in front of you. Taking a few breaths with it, deciding I'll begin here, and the loose, wiggly shape will start something like this. And let the hand take it away as you become ready, picking up the tool, the pen, or the pencil, whichever you like to draw with. Using a couple of centering breaths to guide, and then as you're ready, making that first instance. Something loose, something free in the hand. It doesn't have to complete. It could complete as a whole shape or just be a little squiggle, whatever it kind of is, but the proto form, the protoplasm, taking a little bit of space there, but its shape, while present, is wiggly and less defined. Taking it in for a moment with the eyes, noticing its character, maybe its ins and outs, or its roundness, or axes, definition. Thinking about where you can begin to bring a little precision, and we'll use a little more time, a little more breath to start to work our way around the shape in another layer, a contour coming out where some things with an exhalation take on a little bit more shape, just moving at a comfortable pace. Doesn't have to be slow, but slower than the wiggle. You can always pause once we complete a small portion and think and notice how it extends to the next phase, maybe going from curve to straight, or direction changing, reaching a moment taking your time with it, taking a breath, and working out onto the next leg of the journey. And so we're working around an object, having those pauses where you can take in and reposition, adjust the hand, adjust the tool, and exhale out another segment. And take in what's coming ahead, going around that perimeter or along the contour of the shape, noticing how it might move, playing over it a little bit in the air, deciding how to engage with it in that layer of further resolution. Taking in a nice engaging breath. Anytime you come to a transition point, using it to breathe out the next moment. Mapping ahead, noticing strange conditions, deciding how they might play out. And so they're completing the cycle again, whether it's closed, shape, or open, or a little bit of both. Just working our way along its edges to define it a little bit more. And going into another layer, another round, tracing along that, looking for more connection to the shape, more emphasis, perhaps starting in new places, moving in various directions, but following again the breath in before each segment, and the breath out to trace along, gaining a little more resolution or definition. Noticing if there's moments of change from curved to straight, wiggly to controlled. Following that breath and the eyes around as we trace a little off from the beginning, using the exhalation to redefine how we read the shape entity there. And at any time, taking a few breaths, letting the eyes take in what's coming ahead, letting the mind think and decide how it wants to engage with that shape, and then guiding the hand along that next layer or contour. And maybe you see some opportunities for the rings to keep growing, the changes to keep resolving finer and finer control. Feel free to take that as a whole or a little bit of parts. Maybe begin to pull out segments that I notice in my drawing or notice with the eye. Perhaps something like a corner or a strong, continuous curve for a little while, perhaps broken into its moments of tangent, a little arc or loop, something that can kind of live on its own, beginning to pull or dissolve itself out from the whole, taking it in, reading over the shape with the pen or the pencil, noticing where little segments work as their own thing. And then another layer contouring off, recreating that condition, exploring it, giving it a little emphasis, drawing over it, and moving to another condition, whether they stay connected, begin to separate a little bit. It's up to you. They'll slowly become more and more their own thing. But starting in their relationship with each other. Give them a few overpasses, bring a little more ink to the page, a little more graphite to the position, a little bit heavier line. As they start to establish themselves as their own parts. Keeping in the attention the cycle of the breath, and that inhalation and exhalation, guiding the translation of components of the shape. And that's just riding the inhalation and exhalation through. Or using the inhalation to establish position and exhaling along trajectory. We may have several moments here and they can begin to continue to expand, so working your way along and around, deciding which elements to bring focus to, layering them out as new pieces, similar and related to the old, but unique, their new instantiation. Tracing them a few times, we have to bring a little emphasis of intensity to each one. And we'll continue around it. Again, maybe they can break down a little further or just start to change their condition as they expand. Drifting a little farther apart from their original condition. They shift and move a little bit as we reach farther and farther from the beginning. Each piece remembering its connection back to the whole, but a little bit of its own moment. Playing a few rounds of this, going around a few times, finding the new relationships as they gain their own bit of independence, maybe starting consciously from new places to read the whole in a different way, somewhere you haven't begun before, a direction you haven't drawn, an emphasis new to that moment and that layer. Along the previous instance, riding the breath through the motion. And somewhere in there now, continue around as you want. They begin to drift and change, become their own thing. We can bring them a little bit more presence. Begin to treat some as their own shape beyond the element of just the arc, the curve, or the line segment. bring into them a little bit of dimension. So after you make your way through again, finding ones that stand out. It could be an inner moment somewhere along the way, the outer ring, and looking at giving them a little bit of thickness, a little bit of dimension, perhaps. Just a bit of an offset here. Thickening the corner into a block. Maybe a wiggle becomes like a brush stroke, starts thin, thickens, and returns. Finding ways to bring a little bit of weight to moments that stand out to your eye. Not overthinking, just seeing it, working into it, diving in and changing how we read the edge into shape or figure. And maybe these are spread around, a couple per line, per instance, one per instance. It's just a reading over, another way of seeing what's there. Engaging in its dissolution from that proto-whole through the slight refinements into unique elements. And I'm starting to take each one of those as an inspiration. For instance, here I have a case where two exist on the same part. One square, one pointier at its ends. And perhaps I can find the way between those. First, the drawing again, but with a little bit of one influencing the other. Tucking itself in, approaching completion, transitioning from a boxed hole to a pinched hole, suggesting at some of the parts before that vanish. We're at a corner, coming apart into separate rectangles, or a rectangle drifting apart into its edges in space, loosely arranged. Taking each one as a moment that can interact with the history of it before and the neighbors become a little bit more of itself. As it dissolves out from the whole, it slowly resolves into a new condition. We're now taking a few moments to draw through the space there, find new ones to give a character to, find new paths to explore as they transform across space, lighten, change, dissolve, and become something new. Go coalescing or dissolving further, each its own little narrative from that first beginning. With pen or pencil, I think I might switch to pencil a little bit, but I think anything would work just fine. We can to trace back through that. Anytime you see an opportunity to play the game that's been set up in the slow transformation and dissolving from whole to part, the new whole, feel free to take it on, explore it. I'm going to bring a little bit of shade and tone, starting at the center and working my way out to explore the layers there. Give that first proto shape a little bit of depth or dimension. You'll fill and shade, take up a little more space on the paper and the eye. Let's bring another reading to the whole thing. And again, just gonna be done with pen, this hatch or kind of specks and marks. A pencil for some quicker, lighter shading, for tone, and depth. Starting to notice another way to read, another way to see the elements and the whole together. And changing a bit the motion, perhaps of the hand, to quicker marks more about the space, filling in some territory. Marks about defining the emptiness with a material quality. Marks not about the perimeter or the shape, but about the whole. Whichever instrument or tool you're using, pen, pencil, the application of many marks or the layering of tone or graphite. Noticing where it can work, where it could fill between, move along, and where it may not. The whole takes its new configuration from the interaction with the technique, with the application, with the reading. Just be present for a bit in that motion of the hand, filling in a little space. Moves both free and constrained, working within a boundary or along a trajectory or an edge, but looser, more filling, more applying rather than tracing along. Giving your mind some time to notice that sensation. Perhaps hear the new sound of the tool interacting with the paper. Graphite here makes a little scratch. Sound back and forth, slowly smoothing out into shape. The pen may make a tick, tick, an engagement sound as the more mechanical element continuously marks the paper. Notice the texture and how it guides the tool, helping it along in some directions, but in the 360 of the whole, also resisting it in others, making small adjustments when your hand notices these things, sends them up to the mind. Maybe your eyes see stroke, directionality, grain, density, tone, and intensity in the relationship between each new application. A lot of action, a lot of movement of the hand, a lot of connection between the eye's perception of edge or boundary and the accumulation of media onto the paper. A place to drift into. Get a little soft in the moment, a little released into the action. and spend a couple of minutes just drawing with it, breathing, being. Start to notice the many layers, finding new opportunities, more shapes than we thought were there to fill in, or not enough. We find the action engaging as we move to find ways to deal with the non-shape. The drawing opens up the need to be creative. Each curve, each new element, a new opportunity to explore, to define, to figure out along the way. And we could always add more, or begin again the ripple from that simple, light, wiggly definition of a kind of thing, a proto-shape, transforming through layers of attention, of consideration, of observing, becoming something more refined or defined, and then suggesting its own new opportunities to change, to dissolve, to reform, and continue out and out and out, on and on and on. As we come closer to the end of the time, taking a few moments to take it all in, to see where the thing is now, to make a few final gestures, if there's opportunities that stand out, or to let yourself step back. Let the pen or pencil come to a rest and set it down to the side. Give the hands a little bit of rest, a little bit of reconnection, moving them around in space, wiggling the fingers, and then squeezing them with a nice inhale, and letting them open and relax on the release and the exhale. And this is Rooks is Fun signing off. Draw well.